I'm Steve Mann and this is Paper Classroom. Welcome to another one of our video tutorials. We're still on the topic of history, and what we're going to talk about now is handmade paper. Now, as we saw in some earlier videos, this was how the Chinese made paper. They had this bamboo frame with supports, and they had like a mat of very thin slivers of bamboo sewn together with cotton, which then rested on this frame. It's a little like this. This is actually a sushi mat for making sushi, but it gives you the idea. So they put this sieve on the frame, they dunk it into a tub of a fibre suspension, lift it up very gently. The stock drains through this bamboo mesh, the fibres get caught on top. This is then lifted off, given to an apprentice to go away and take the sheet off. Meanwhile, another apprentice who's already done that brings back an empty one of these, the master paper maker puts it on here and carries on again. One of the things that this wooden structure does is it actually interferes with the drainage. Because the mat is resting on these lines here, these strips of bamboo, that actually impedes water flowing through the mat. And therefore, in the area where those supports are, less water flows, therefore less fibres get carried to that area, and therefore the sheet is just that little bit thinner in that area. Similarly, on this bamboo mat, the slivers of bamboo go across, so when the water drains through, more fibres will go towards the gap between the bamboo, and where the bamboo is itself, there'll be just that little bit less water, and therefore that little bit less fibre. The result of that is what we call a watermark. So you can see here the lines going down, which is where the supports were, and you can see the lines going across, which is where the slivers of bamboo were. Maybe this will make it a little bit easier for you to see. So these are the support strips of bamboo. Each one of those gives rise to this line here. The strips of bamboo go across like that, and you can see across where the light area is, a little bit less fibre, that's where the bamboo was. The darker area, a bit more fibre, that was the space between two slivers of bamboo. So the watermark came about not deliberately, but just because of the structure of the apparatus which made it. Later on, people did actually start to deliberately put in watermarks, and the first people to do that were the Italians. So the Italians were actually the inventors, really, of the watermark. Now, it took nearly 1,000 years for them to have an idea. So rather than the mat being sat on the frame and dipping it in to collect fibre, someone had an idea. Why don't we take our support, build the mesh, the sieve into the support, and then put a frame around it. By doing that, you can actually catch more fibre, and therefore you can make a thicker piece of paper. So rather than just having this flat surface to catch some fibres and make a thin paper, you can now catch more fibres and make a thicker piece of paper. As I say, it took round about 1,000 years to do that. The Arabs called this a fence. They put a fence there to catch more water. And it's probably a word that you know, But what's the Arabic word for fence? The Arabic word for fence is decal. So we talk about the decal of a paper machine being the width of a paper machine. The word comes from the Arabic word for fence, to catch all this water. And here's another interesting little exercise for you. If you have a smartphone, then if you have a scan of this QR code with your smartphone, that will take you to another one of my YouTube videos where you can actually see someone demonstrating exactly what this equipment looks like and how it works. So if you want to see a sheet being cast one piece at a time like the old days, scan that, follow the QR code, follow the link to my YouTube, and enjoy the site. One of the most significant things that happened in the UK was in 1757 by James. It was an invention by James Watman. The Chinese made the sieve of these slivers of bamboo, as remember we said, that sat on the frame. In the West, of course, we didn't grow bamboo. So what did we use? Well, Western people had actually learned the secret of wire drawing. They'd learned about getting rubies and drilling a hole through a ruby and pulling hot metal through the ruby to draw out wire. So what the people in Europe did was, rather than having slivers of bamboo, they had slivers of wire, and they sewed the slivers of wire together, and then they fastened that to the base, and then they had their frame on top. Anyway, Watman put two different ideas together. He said, we have these very thin wire. We also have linen. Now, linen thread we weave together into a cloth. So why can't we do that with wire? So James Watman had the idea of taking these very thin wires, weaving them, just like people wove flax and cotton, to make a wire cloth. And then the wire cloth was fastened to the frame. And now, when you make a paper, you don't have those supports. You don't have the big differences in drainage, and so you don't get that old-fashioned traditional wire mark. In the old-fashioned traditional method, the wire mark is known as a laid mark. Here, because this is a woven fabric, if you look closely, you can actually sometimes see the weave in the paper, and so that is known as a wove mark. So we now have two distinct types of watermark: the laid mark and the wove mark. In today's modern paper making, when we want paper to look good, we do traditionally put in something like a laid mark, but that's not done with the wire. That's often done with a dandy, which is a roll that sits on top of the sheet as it's being formed. And we'll talk about dandies when we talk about sheet formation in later tutorials. That's all I want to really say about handmade paper making, except of course it's now in today's modern world, it's an artisan craft where people are making handmade paper for artists, and that's a growing situation at the moment. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please enjoy our other videos, give us some feedback, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye bye.